Serotonin syndrome and neuroleptic malignant syndrome are both medical emergencies. The symptoms of serotonin syndrome and neuroleptic malignant syndrome are very similar. Let's talk about the basics of serotonin syndrome and neuroleptic malignant syndrome and how to differentiate these conditions. Make sure to check out our previous videos on antidepressants and antipsychotics to better understand this video. Let's start off by discussing serotonin syndrome. Serotonin syndrome is a potentially life-threatening condition, and it's characterized by excess serotonergic activity in the central nervous system. It is typically caused by patients ingesting serotonergic drugs, and we have discussed many of the serotonergic drugs in our antidepressants video. These drugs include the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or the SSRIs, the serotonin noradrenaline reuptake inhibitors, or the SNRIs, the tricyclic antidepressants, or the TCAs, the monoamine oxidase inhibitors, or the MAOIs. Atypical antidepressants such as mirtazapine has also been associated with causing serotonin syndrome. Other drugs implicated in serotonin syndrome include triptans. Triptans are used to treat cluster headaches and migraines, and they are also associated with causing serotonin syndrome. Another drug associated with causing serotonin syndrome is tramadol. Let's now discuss neuroleptic malignant syndrome. The pathophysiology of neuroleptic malignant syndrome is poorly understood. However, it is thought that it develops due to excess D2 receptor blockade in the central nervous system, and this leads to very reduced dopamine levels within the central nervous system. It is typically associated with patients ingesting dopamine-lowering drugs, and we've discussed many of these drugs in our antipsychotics video. Typical antipsychotics are D2 receptor antagonists, and an example of a typical antipsychotic is haloperidol. Neuroleptic malignant syndrome is most common with the typical antipsychotics. It can also occur with the atypical antipsychotics, such as clozapine. Metoclopramide is an antiemetic, and it is also associated with neuroleptic malignant syndrome, as metoclopramide can also lower dopamine levels within the central nervous system. Neuroleptic malignant syndrome is also seen in patients who experience abrupt withdrawal of dopaminergic drugs. This is most commonly seen in the setting of patients with Parkinsonism, and these patients are taking dopaminergic drugs such as levodopa. And then these patients suddenly stop taking their dopaminergic drugs such as levodopa, and then they develop symptoms characteristic of neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Let's now discuss the clinical features of both of these conditions. In terms of the clinical features of serotonin syndrome is characterized by a triad, and this triad includes autonomic instability, altered mental status, and neuromuscular hyperactivity. It's important to realize that the clinical presentation of serotonin syndrome is highly variable between patients, and that not all patients will have all of the symptoms that we are now going to discuss. In terms of the autonomic instability, patients with serotonin syndrome can develop diaphoresis, which refers to excessive sweating. Patients can also develop hypothermia, which is an important symptom in serotonin syndrome. Remember, hypothermia is not the same as a fever. A fever is an increase in body temperature that occurs due to the hypothalamic thermoregulation being disrupted due to inflammatory cytokines such as TNF-alpha. Hypothermia refers to an increase in body temperature that is not due to inflammatory cytokines disrupting the hypothalamus. Patients with serotonin syndrome will classically develop tachycardia, and commonly, patients with serotonin syndrome will also complain of diarrhea as well. So these are some of the characteristic symptoms of autonomic instability in the patient. In terms of altered mental status, patients with serotonin syndrome can have very bad anxiety. Another potential symptom of serotonin syndrome is psychomotor agitation. And finally, patients with serotonin syndrome can also experience delirium. Finally, in terms of the neuromuscular hyperactivity, patients with serotonin syndrome can develop a tremor. As it is characterized by neuromuscular hyperactivity, patients with serotonin syndrome can also develop myoclonus, which refers to a sudden involuntary muscle twitch. Another symptom which again relates to the neuromuscular hyperactivity is hyperreflexia. It's important to note here that the myoclonus and the hyperreflexia is much more common in the lower limbs compared to the upper limbs. Patients with serotonin syndrome can also have a positive Babinski sign, and the positive Babinski sign can also be bilateral. Babinski sign refers to dorsiflexion of the big toe and plantar flexion and spreading of the small toes when the sole of the foot is stroked along the lateral aspect. And it again indicates neuromuscular hyperactivity in this context. So these are the clinical features of serotonin syndrome. Again, please remember, the symptoms of serotonin syndrome is highly variable between patients, and not all patients will have all of these symptoms. The symptoms of serotonin syndrome can range from very mild to life-threatening. It's important to ask whether the patient has overdosed on a serotonergic drug, as often patients with greater toxicity experience more severe symptoms, so it's very important to take a very detailed drug history in patients presenting with serotonin syndrome. In terms of the onset of serotonin syndrome, the symptoms generally develop within 24 hours, so patients generally present very acutely. The onset of symptoms generally occurs following the initiation of a new serotonergic drug, or if a patient has overdosed on a serotonergic drug, or if the dose of a serotonergic drug has been recently increased, or if a patient's serotonergic drug has been replaced by another serotonergic drug, but not enough time has been allowed to pass in between. Severe toxicity usually occurs when there is a combination of serotonergic drugs being taken, and usually one of the serotonergic drugs is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. In terms of the investigations for serotonin syndrome is generally a clinical diagnosis based on the history, examination, and clinical features of the patient. Findings from blood tests are generally non-specific, but it is often important to investigate the patient to exclude other differential diagnoses. In terms of the management of serotonin syndrome, patients can be acutely unwell, so it's very important to do a full A to E assessment and also seek specialist advice. The most important aspect of managing serotonin syndrome is to stop all serotonergic drugs that a patient is taking. So it's very important to take a comprehensive drug history and stop the drugs accordingly. The mainstay of managing serotonin syndrome is supportive care and continuously observing the patient. Patients with serotonin syndrome may often need to be sedated. In severe cases of serotonin syndrome, cyproheptadine can be given. Cyproheptadine is a serotonin antagonist, so it will help to lower the serotonin levels. So cyproheptadine is often the definitive management option for serotonin syndrome. Let's now discuss neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Neuroleptic malignant syndrome can also be characterized by a triad. And just like serotonin syndrome, this triad also includes autonomic instability and altered mental status. But unlike serotonin syndrome, instead of neuromuscular hyperactivity, neuroleptic malignant syndrome is characterized by neuromuscular hypoactivity, which is different compared to serotonin syndrome. In terms of the autonomic instability, one of the defining symptoms of neuroleptic malignant syndrome is hypothermia. Hypothermia is a key symptom to look for in a patient with suspected neuroleptic malignant syndrome, so always check the patient's temperature. Most patients with neuroleptic malignant syndrome will have tachycardia, and another common symptom in neuroleptic malignant syndrome is diaphoresis. Unlike serotonin syndrome, diarrhea is not that common in neuroleptic malignant syndrome. In terms of the altered mental status, patients with neuroleptic malignant syndrome can experience delirium. Because it is characterized by neuromuscular hypoactivity, patients might appear lethargic. And in severe cases of neuroleptic malignant syndrome, patients might also experience encephalopathy. In terms of the neuromuscular hypoactivity, one of the key features of neuroleptic malignant syndrome is muscle rigidity. The type of muscle rigidity seen in neuroleptic malignant syndrome is lead pipe rigidity, which means that there is stable resistance through all ranges of movement. Another feature of neuromuscular hypoactivity that is seen in neuroleptic malignant syndrome is hyporeflexia, which again is different compared to serotonin syndrome, where there is often hyperreflexia. So these are the clinical features of neuroleptic malignant syndrome. In terms of the onset, neuroleptic malignant syndrome has a much more gradual onset compared to serotonin syndrome, and neuroleptic malignant syndrome generally develops over days or weeks. In terms of the investigations for neuroleptic malignant syndrome, there are some key findings in blood tests that could help point towards the diagnosis of neuroleptic malignant syndrome. One of the key findings is significantly elevated creatine kinase levels, and this is very important to measure. Another finding is elevated white blood cells, so patients commonly develop a leukocytosis. Another finding is myoglobinuria, and this refers to the presence of myoglobin in the urine. This is more common if the patient has developed rhabdomyolysis, which refers to skeletal muscle breakdown. A key point to remember about myoglobin is that it is nephrotoxic and it can damage the kidneys and cause an acute kidney injury, so it can be very problematic. Other findings include mild elevations in enzymes such as LDH, ALT, and ALP. Electrolyte abnormalities are frequently observed in neuroleptic malignant syndrome. And finally, there can be a decrease in the serum iron. Again, remember, the pathophysiology of neuroleptic malignant syndrome is not completely understood, so the findings in these blood tests and a lot of the clinical features are still not fully understood. In terms of the management of neuroleptic malignant syndrome, again, just like serotonin syndrome, patients can be acutely unwell, so it's very important to do a full A2E assessment of the patient and also consult specialist advice. Again, just like serotonin syndrome, one of the most important aspects of managing neuroleptic malignant syndrome is to stop the causative drug. And remember, in neuroleptic malignant syndrome, this is most commonly due to antipsychotics. So again, it's very important to take a comprehensive drug history from the patient. Supportive care is very important in neuroleptic malignant syndrome. And it's important to realize that most patients with neuroleptic malignant syndrome will need to go to intensive care because they will be very unwell. In terms of medical therapy, dantrolene has been shown to be very effective in treating the symptoms of neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Dantrolene acts directly on skeletal muscles and helps relax them, and it also helps to reduce the hypothermia. So dantrolene is very effective at treating the symptoms of neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Bromocriptine can also be used for neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Bromocriptine is a dopamine agonist, so it increases dopamine levels within the central nervous system, and this can also help with the symptoms of neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Let's now summarize the key differences between serotonin syndrome and neuroleptic malignant syndrome. In terms of the cause of these conditions, serotonin syndrome is caused by serotonergic drugs such as antidepressants. Neuroleptic malignant syndrome is mainly caused by antipsychotics. In terms of the onset of these conditions, serotonin syndrome generally develops within 24 hours, whereas neuroleptic malignant syndrome has a much more gradual onset and generally develops within days or weeks. Hypothermia, tachycardia, and altered mental status are clinical features that are seen in both conditions. So these conditions can present very similarly. In terms of the neuromuscular activity, serotonin syndrome is characterized by neuromuscular hyperactivity, and symptoms include myoclonus and hyperreflexia. In neuroleptic malignant syndrome, there is neuromuscular hypoactivity, and symptoms include severe muscle rigidity, and remember, this is in the form of lead pipe rigidity. Another symptom seen is hyporeflexia. Diarrhea is much more common in serotonin syndrome compared to neuroleptic malignant syndrome. In terms of the investigations, remember, serotonin syndrome is a clinical diagnosis, and findings in blood tests are generally non-specific. However, in neuroleptic malignant syndrome, blood tests can be very useful, and the most important finding to remember is elevated creatine kinase levels. Finally, in terms of the management of these conditions, serotonin syndrome is managed by stopping all serotonergic drugs. Supportive care is very important in serotonin syndrome. And finally, cyproheptadine can be given in severe cases. In terms of the management of neuroleptic malignant syndrome, it is very important to stop the causative drug, which is usually a typical antipsychotic. Supportive care is also very important in neuroleptic malignant syndrome. And in terms of medical therapy, dantrolene and bromocriptine can be given. And that is an overview of serotonin syndrome and neuroleptic malignant syndrome.